Don't thank me. Thank the goose that lays the golden egg.
As you can see, in this old cartoon, Felix the cat owns a goose that lays golden eggs. Because Felix is such a swell guy, or cat, he gives away these golden eggs to anyone who wants one. This way, everyone can get rich. In economics, we have a name for this concept. It's called fucking stupid. It's quite simple, really. If everybody has gold, then nobody has gold. Gold loses its value. We might also ask the same question of white supremacists. If everybody is white, then nobody is white. They're both logically stupid concepts. There are many things in our society that everyone has access to in unlimited supply. Air, tree leaves, dandelions. These things are all free because they require no labor to obtain them. Gold has value because it requires a very involved labor process to make. If we take that labor away and just give gold away for free, then gold has no value. There's a smarter character in this film. Captain Kidd, thinking like a good pirate, realizes that if he steals the goose and keeps it for himself, then he can get rich.
That's where he gets it. Please help an old lady who's cold and hungry. Let me come in and warm myself.
Look out! It's Captain Kidd!
Here's how that works. The gold is free for Captain Kidd if he steals the goose. He doesn't need to do anything at all to get the gold, so it has no value to him. He could wipe his ass with it, or he could use it as a paperweight. For the rest of the world, gold is still of high value. The companies that mine gold spend a lot of labor time getting it out of the ground, purifying it and turning it into coins and circuitry and jewelry. In order for consumers and workers to get gold, they have to work hard for a paycheck and then go out and buy the gold. So there is a real inequality between the value of the gold for Captain Kidd and the value of the gold to the rest of the world. When Captain Kidd buys commodities with his gold, he is getting something for nothing. He's benefiting from a gross inequality in exchange. Now, of course, if Captain Kidd were ever to spend all of the gold the goose made, that gold, once in circulation, would begin to devalue. But hopefully by then, Captain Kidd would have already taken advantage of this inequality in exchange and made himself rich by buying lots of commodities. So this inequality he has can only be a temporary one. Captain Kidd must make the most of it while he can.
And our fortune's made. I've got the goose that lays the golden egg. Weigh the anchor. We're going places.
Now, I'd love to talk about cartoons all day, but it's more fun to talk about capitalists. They are like pirates in many ways. Capitalists as well have a situation where they can benefit from a temporary inequality in exchange, a narrow window of opportunity in which they can take advantage over something which only they have in order to get the most out of an exchange. It involves machines, workers, and competition, and that's what I'm here to talk about. The ideas here build upon ideas presented in my video, Do-It-Yourself Exploitation, so make sure to watch that video. Capitalist competition drives capitalists to attempt to undersell each other in the marketplace. Underselling means outselling, which means more profits. But underselling also means lowering the cost of the product, which means generating less profit per product. But what if capitalists could lower the expense of making the product? Then they could sell it for less and still get more profit per product while also selling more products. This is the goal of capitalist competition, to find a golden egg, some method of making the value of their commodity to them less than the general social value of that commodity in the marketplace. There are two broad categories of inputs that capitalists purchase in order to make commodities. The first is human labor, the second is dead human labor. By this, I do not mean zombies. I mean commodities already made by other humans in other factories.
For example, how much do you think the raw materials cost in that car?
Oh, About $300.
You've got a surprise coming. The raw materials require the accumulated labor of thousands of people in countless crafts to transform them into a finished automobile. Miners dig the coal and iron ore. Railroad and maritime workers transport these materials to the steel mill, where workers convert the ore into finished steel. The wages of railroad workers add to the value of steel when it is transported to automobile factories. When all of the parts and materials finally reach the factory for assembly, the labor cost of automobile workers must be added to the price of the car.
At each stage in the production process, the capitalist is buying raw materials and machines that are dead labor. They're labor that's already been completed and is no longer active. The values of those raw materials and machines correspond to labor that has already been completed. The capitalist buys this finished labor, this dead labor, and then hires workers, living labor, to make this final product, which is then sold to consumers. This final product now represents a collective labor effort spread out in space and time, passing through the hands of many workers working for different capitalists. At each point in this process, workers turned their living labor into dead labor until this final product rolled off the assembly line into the store. The economic value of the product then corresponds to the amount of labor that went into making it at every stage of the process. Its price is the way this value is measured in money. If capitalists want to undersell their competition by lowering their costs, they're going to have to economize on this labor at some point. The only labor they can economize on is the labor that they have control over it, the labor working in their factory at the moment. They can't economize on the dead labor of their raw materials and machines because this labor has already been done. That's why we call dead labor constant capital and living labor variable capital. Of course, capitalists can seek out cheaper constant capital. They may scour the earth for cheaper inputs, and this cheaper constant capital could be their goose that laid the golden egg. But in a market economy, all capitalists can buy from that source as well. So as soon as everyone finds that source of cheaper inputs, the golden egg disappears and the market is equalized again. Variable capital, or workers, offer more opportunity for discovering some golden eggs because it's variable. Its ability to produce value is dependent on the capitalist's capacity to extract value from workers. If you can get your workers to produce more for less, then perhaps this can be your golden egg. The quest for labor efficiency is one of the strongest drives in capitalism. Capitalists are constantly seeking ways to structure and restructure labor in order to make it more efficient. I go into this in more detail in my do-it-yourself exploitation video, but basically, there eventually is a lower limit to how low one can set wages, how hard workers can work, how efficiently one can structure the workplace. This is why technical innovation becomes such a unique obsession in a capitalist society. When a capitalist introduces a new labor-saving machine into the work process, that is, a machine that makes labor work more efficiently, he can then produce more commodities with the same amount of labor. But now, to that capitalist, isn't that new commodity of lesser value than before, since it takes less labor to make? Well, no, because even though it takes less labor for him to make it, it still takes the original amount of labor for everyone else to make it. Here an important concept should be mentioned, the concept of socially necessary labor time. The value of a commodity is set by the socially necessary amount of labor that goes into making it. If I can make a can of beans myself, and it takes me forever because I don't have access to all the machines and raw materials that a big company does, I still have to sell it at the socially necessary labor cost. Nobody's going to pay me for the whole day I spent making it when it only takes most companies 30 seconds to make a can of beans.